Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, the Retirement Marathon, part one in our series on saving for retirement in your working years. Well, welcome everyone. We're talking again about retirement in your working years, and I really want to talk about how retirement really is a marathon. I don't want you to think in short-term horizons or maybe mid-term horizons. You need to be talking about long-term horizons, maybe even, and depending upon the products, even lifetime commitments. So when I'm looking at retirement, it's a long haul. I remember back in the day, sometimes when you're in your 20s, that's when you're starting. And think about it, depends upon when you started. When we started saving for retirement, it was all before some of the biggest downturns in the market. So it was all pre-2000. For people who were coming into our business around 2000, people there were in their 30s and 40s, and they were saving for the first time for retirement 2001, 2002, 2003, and then in 2008 were all bad years. And so the actual 10-year return was actually negative. It was called the lost decade. So people just coming into business, just coming into their careers, were already saving for 401k only to get negative results for the first 10 years. So, but it's a marathon. It's a long-term position. You have to start thinking of your mindset. One day you're 25, the next day you're 65. I mean, time flies at the speed of light. So you're looking at several little platforms when you're looking at preparing. So in your 20s, you're just getting started and you say, Steve, I just don't have the cash flow to go ahead and put money aside. But if your employer is matching your contribution, you should be doing this all day long up to the match. I promise you. The number one rate of return that kills a rate of return can be market dips and market bear markets, corrections, and sometimes even a black swan event. But the real issue is procrastination. If you're in your 20s and you have a full-time job, you should be putting aside money now, even if it's a small amount. I know that you're saving for a home. I know that you're saving for your child's education, but you should start saving for your retirement the moment you become a person that's in the workforce and you're an earner. So when I'm hitting my 30s and 40s, I'm hitting my stride. I should be somewhere in the middle of my career where I figured out what I want to do for the rest of my life. It's not written in stone, but most people already have figured out their personality, everything that they want to do in their life, and they picked a career that they think they can live with. When you get into your 40s and 50s, you're on the far turn. You're on the last, heading down for the last leg. And now things really matter. You don't have the time any longer, so all of a sudden things become more important. And sometimes you have to start reducing your expense loads in your 50s before you get to retirement so that you can start lowering your everyday budget obligations and your discretionary spending. That has to kind of come pretty fast in your late 50s. When you get into 60s, we're in our home stretch. Now remember, for baby boomers, our full retirement age for about a half of us is age 66. The other half is 67. I have chosen to delay my Social Security to get the maximum return. Did you realize as a boomer, if your full retirement age is age 66 and you were just to wait to age 70, 4 more years to take constructive receipt of your Social Security, you're going to get an 8% simple return. There's no place in the market I can offer an 8% simple return. I can't. Nothing's going to beat it, not without risk at least. There it is, 8% simple. So I'm trying to delay taking constructive receipt of my Social Security till I'm age 70. I'm also trying to wait to take constructive receipt of any of my qualified plans, whether it's my 401k, an IRA, or defined benefit plan. When you're looking at your future, it's hard to think about it when you're in your 20s that someday you're going to be in your 60s. And a heads up for millennials. I believe the retirement age, by the time you get there, the new retirement benchmark is going to be at age 70. So just start thinking, you won't be working through your mid-60s any longer. I think it's going to go to age 70. And why is that important? Because I think the tail end, our longevity on the back door. Remember, I've said this many times, Jean Clement lived to 122 years, 164 days. She is the Guinness Book of World Records. When you consider the last tri-centenarian died in the United States, Susanna Jones, she was born in 1899 in May. She lived throughout the entire 20th century and died May 2016. Listen, those are the outliers, those are the extremes, but remember, we're seeing more and more geriatric seniors crossing into age 100 than we ever have in the history of when we started looking at mortality. So I believe a lot of the millennials, people who are really good about diet, really good about exercise, are going to be living longer. You're going to be living longer, you're going to have a 30, 35-year retirement. You need to start thinking that way. For us who are already there in our 60s, listen, Most of us, if you're going to go that far out, think about it. The average male, according to the Wall Street Journal, is 86.6. The average female is 88.8. And the survivor of a marriage, generally the wife, 87% of the time, she'll live to age 93. That's the average in America. That means that half of America will actually supersede these numbers. So just keep in mind, this is a big thing to think about. And when you're looking at retirement and starting to think about it while you're working, this is the time to start talking about it. As I said before, procrastination is one of the great, really, I would call erosions inside your retirement thinking. You just keep putting it off, you keep putting it off. You think today's issues are so much more important than tomorrow. But just even a little bit of contributions every month, dollar cost averaging, can really get you started and get you on the road. Don't procrastinate. If you're in your 20s, put whatever you can, scrape it together every month. I think you're going to be so happy you did later on in life. Now, personal investing goals. We all have to have goals. Part of our goals before we get to retirement is, hey, I have to have a down payment for a home, so I want to start saving for that. I want to be able to start having children. I might have to save for that. I want to send those children to college. I might have to save for that. I want to start saving for my retirement and my elder care years. When I get up into my 80s and 90s, I might need help, so I might need long-term care thinking. I want to think about it now, not later. And if you have relatives that are in their 70s and 80s, you already have seen what's happening already. Some of them have went to nursing homes. Some of them are doing assisted home living at home, which is my goal. That's what I want. I have goals. I have to have reasons for why I'm investing. And those are some of the personal goals on the timeline that most Americans will always have to challenge. It will be a challenge in their life. And those are the things that I want to look at. So when I'm building the value of my portfolio, I want to start to look at how I'm going to start saving. And before I do any of that, and I mean before I do one thing, I'm going to take a risk tolerance test. I said before on the show, it's not really science, but it's an excellent indicator of kind of your psychological profile, your psychonomics, if you will. I want to take that test. If I'm married, I want to take the test separate from my spouse. I don't want her or I to look at each other's answers. Let's do the test without intervention from the spouse. Look at those numbers and then talk through the commonalities where we have common ideas about investing. Remember, money is the #2 issue of divorce in the United States. You need, if you're dating right now and you're thinking you found Mr. Wonderful or you found the girl of your dreams, you need to start talking about money today, and especially including student debt loan. Remember, right now today, there's over $1 trillion in student debt loan that is out there. It has now superseded credit card debt. When you're coming together and thinking about marriage with a gal or a guy, you need to start talking about money right up front and find out if you've married a spender and a person who goes through credit like you cannot believe. One of the good tests, of course, is while you're dating during Christmas, you can kind of look at the statements coming in January and see if they're being paid off. I'm just giving you a heads up. That's a big issue in marriage. I've been married 43 years, and I can test. Money can be an issue. It needs to be conquered and talked about early on. When I'm looking at it, I want to seek growth. When I'm young, I'm after growth. But remember, I'm doing it within the confines of my psychological profile on money. So I've already taken my test. I pretty much know my propensities. Now that I'm older, I've traded. I used to be, when I was in my 30s, I'd be much more aggressive, heavily in stocks, little in bonds, very little in cash. Now that I've gotten older and I'm heading down to the stretch, I've now become seriously conservative. Very little's in the market. A lot of it is in the fixed annuities. I have certain areas that are into bond accounts heavily. So I'm already starting to rebalance my portfolio because my timeline is getting shorter and shorter to retirement, and I can't take the risk. Think about it. In 2008, boomers took not only a hit in the market, but they took a hit in housing. The combination was deadly, I have to say. And it wasn't until about 2015, 7 years later, that most people recovered and got back to par. So it's really important to think about this as we're getting close and you go through some of the turmoil of the market. We can't really take, or in my view, I can't take a major correction that turns into a bear market, and I certainly can't take a black swan event. So you want to start preparing today. What are you doing as you get closer? And we'll be talking about it later on in the week, about the kind of timing that you need for some of these funds and how to do this so you can start moving and rebalancing as you get closer and closer to retirement. Remember, your retirement is about your lifestyle. You have to have money to run your lifestyle. You need to think about that now and why you're moving towards retirement to bring your debt down. Remember, the baby boomers are the first generation ever to take a mortgage into their retirement. It is unheard of in all preceding generations. That mortgage debt alone can be so problematic because we've been paying our children's tuition and our parents' long-term care costs. We need to start thinking about retirement for ourselves. The kids can make it on their own. You got to start focusing on getting out of debt and preparing for retirement. Don't forget to watch our next segment on defined contribution plans, part 2 in our series on saving for retirement in your working years. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.